This is Soul Say.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Black Quarantine Report. As always, I'm your host, Kim Brio, and I know you see it looks a little different. I wanted to change the scenery, and quite frankly, y'all, I didn't feel like pulling my sign out the other room. That was just too much, and I just was like, no, you're just going to stay there. So you guys are getting the home, so that's what this is about. It's Black Quarantine Report, so that's just fine. I want to welcome today's guest, Mr. Gardner. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. And before I kind of dig in and let you tell people about you and your family business as well, I want to let people know you reached out to me for the interview. And I think that that's really important. I really want people to understand, especially understanding that your family business is a funeral home.
Right.
Your perspective at this time is one of a kind. So the fact that you reached out to me because you feel like there's information for the community, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
So tell the people a little bit about you, your family business, give them a little background and why we're talking about it with you.
Okay. All right. So again, my name is Jamel Gardner. I'm the Vice President of Operations at my family's funeral home, which is called Gardner Funeral Home. We were founded in 1995 by my parents, Judge and Ina Gardner. So it's been our mission, over the last 20 years to, provide a service of integrity and compassion and excellence to families during one of the worst periods of their lives, which is in the event that they lose a loved one. So, we've been doing that. God has really blessed us to just be going strong for so many years. We've branched out even outside of the Chicagoland area to service families from, Peoria, even some families out of state. So it's just been a great experience for me, being the second generation of it, to just continue on that legacy, again, of excellence and compassion and service. So, so that's just a little bit about me and about
Who
my
you guys
family.
are. Yeah, and I want to commend you because that's a lot nowadays. You can't take it for granted that the family business is always going to be continued because people kind of have their own things that they want to do. So I definitely commend you. The Black legislature needs you to do this. So we get that.
We're located at 2533 West 71st Street. I gave the name. I didn't give the address. So 2533 West 71st Street in Chicago. We're right off of, we're a few blocks west of 71st and Western.
Okay. I'll put it right at the top too.
Yeah.
They'll be able to read it.
Yep. So,
okay.
All right.
Now, I want to jump in. Now, the first thing that I typically do with people is ask them about their personal experience with the pandemic. And with you being in the industry that you're in, I'm super interested in how this unfolded for you. What did that look like, and when did you guys really understand how serious it was?
I would say when we kind of first started getting the calls for COVID cases, just the calls from whether they were at the morgue or after they may have transitioned at home. When we get the call, just being informed that they were carriers of the coronavirus, the precautions we had to take, even with going to retrieve them from wherever they were. I've been working with my parents at the funeral home for about 10 years now. And in all of my years of working, when it's time to make any type of removal or retrieve someone's loved one from wherever they are, we usually just go in there. Of course, we wear gloves and, we go in there, we greet the family. If we're really close to the family, we may even greet them with a hug before we remove their loved ones. But with COVID going on, the level of precaution has just risen through the roof, so similar to the state regulations, even before they became state regulations, to have to wear masks. My father, who I was doing the removal with at the time, informed me, hey, here's some Lysol. This is a mask. When you go in, we can't engage physically with people. And that was around the early stages of it. I know we're about, maybe 2 months in now?
About 2 months in now.
Yeah, so that was around just the early stages of it. And again, with, the state, we've been getting communication from the state with us being the funeral home of precautions we need to take as far as, the virus, how long it actually lives on a deceased body after they pass and things like that. So what kind of could kind of be a routine for us has just turned into a whole different experience.
Now, because I want to definitely dig into the logistics of it, but I want to stop here for a second, and I want to ask you personally, as a young Black man in the position, how did it affect you personally? How did it affect your mindset? Like, were you even able to catch up? Because I know some people have told me that, I knew it was going on, but I just kind of had to go. It was like, I just had to go. I didn't really have time to take it in. What was that like for you personally?
My experience was kind of similar. It's once it started to hit, initially we didn't really understand the severity of it and how it would affect the people we service. But me personally, I just thought it was something that was going on. When everything first kind of came to light about it, I think this was around the time maybe like when Kobe passed. So
right.
I saw an article somewhere, and it said, I'm a play basketball in high school. I'm an avid basketball fan. So I saw an article someone posted on the front page of a newsletter. It said Kobe Bryant passes in a helicopter accident. Then in the small sub title off to the side, very small, it said, countries are racing to find a cure for the coronavirus. And just to see that, when was that? Maybe February?
Yeah, February.
It wasn't even, it wasn't even making the front page. It didn't have the full pages on front pages of newsletters.
Yeah.
To being what it is now, it's taking a mental toll from being told that you're supposed to stay in the house. Then in our profession, of course, when we get the call to retrieve someone's loved one, we have to go.
Exactly.
And with the space of our funeral home, just, the increased amount of calls and families that we now have to care for who are actually being affected by this, as a young Black man, it definitely takes a toll.
Yeah.
And it's something that we weren't prepared for. And we just had to, get prepared, just as things just transpired.
You just kind of got to punches. Unfortunately, that's just where it's at. Now, let me ask you this, as we talk about the effects of the pandemic and you being in your industry, I want to first ask you, when you saw this show and you saw Black Quarantine Report and kind of what I was trying to do with it, what made you say, you know what, there's some information that my community needs to get? What is the major information? What drove you to say, we got to have this conversation?
I've been just meeting with so many families, and in meeting with families, they would come into the funeral home to make the arrangements for their loved ones, and seeing family members and people walk in with no masks on. People, walking in and just kind of, as we're discussing their loved one who died from it, they may have been living with them. And us kind of trying to explain to them that, hey, there's a possibility that you could be carrying, and I feel fine. I'm good. I'm straight. And it's
deeper than that.
It's a lot deeper than that. And in our community, and seeing your podcast, seeing your show, I'm like, you know what? I see Kim, she's really focusing her energy around this time while a lot of people are panicking. She's trying to inform people of things. She's trying to educate her community. She's trying to just make people knowledgeable of things, everything that's going on right now, so people can really kind of wake up and realize this is actually happening. So when I saw that, I said, you know what, I love to just kind of be able to come and share what I've had the opportunity to share, again, with families that we've had the opportunity to service, and even just communicating with other business owners in the community who are kind of trying to figure out ways to kind of navigate through this unfamiliar territory.
Right.
So I just want to reach out to you and just kind of share some things as you know, the enemy of death may hit their families. You never know. And it's just kind of the more we inform on certain things, the better we can kind of navigate when it hits home for us. So
Perfect. Now, in the spirit of that, what are some of the essential things that you think that the average Black person, because we just gonna call it what it is, it's the Black Quarantine Report. I can switch the channel, okay? But what are some of the essential things that you think the average Black person is not understanding about the COVID-19 crisis and how they need to maneuver? Can you give me, and I know that there are probably many that you've run into being in your, in your situation. Can you give me some of these essential things that you like? Listen, number 1, 2, 3, like run them through. What are the things that we're not getting?
Well, in retrospect to our service, and some families are kind of getting this, others aren't. Right now, again, how we do funerals has changed. How we do homegoings has completely changed. By the state regulations and the CDC regulations, we can't have any more than 10 people in our facility at any given time. Now, one of the things that we've had, and one of the things I've kind of seen transpire with different families and different things like that, just having people, our people, as you're saying, understand that 10 people is 10 people. We understand that you loved your family member, and we understand that you may have loved your friend who's transitioned, but at the same time, while you're still here, you have to take it seriously that it's important for you to protect yourself and also protect others. The social distancing aspect, I've seen some services where, as we're saying, 10 people are only allowed to come in at this time. The emotion of the situation, people may get a bit rowdy. Oh, well, that's my guy. That's my dude. Yeah, what y'all mean? And it's, and again, it's a culture shock for us because we know how we're used to celebrating homegoings, and it's even that there's a certain way of grieving, because for many people not being able to, because now we're doing virtual funerals. And with the virtual funerals, that's where we can live stream the homegoing or the funeral service, what have you. To Facebook, we can live stream it to Zoom if a family prefers it to be more private, so that family members who can't be within that number of 10 can still experience the service. One of the things in our culture, in the funeral industry, a part of the healing process is the process of being able to grieve together.
Yeah.
So as you're at a funeral service, being able to hug your uncle, being able to hug your auntie or your cousins and embrace them and say, hey, it's going to be okay. We can't do that. So even the 10 people have to social distance. And for a lot of people, that kind of puts a wrinkle in the process of closure. So I just, I encourage people, if I had to kind of name them out, I encourage people to understand the CDC regulations is not our funeral home laws. We didn't put these laws into effect, but the state did. And, with understanding that, we ask that people be understanding. And even if you are one of the 10 who come in, social distancing is still certainly needed. Because again, we don't know who the carriers are. People are asymptomatic as they defined it. Number 3, just take time to understand what's going on and figure out the best way for you to grieve. Because again, that personal touch, which sometimes can really help the healing process, you don't have right now. The ability, you've probably seen services yourself where people may even kiss mama on the cheek or kiss grandpa on the cheek. You can't do that now. And it's nothing we can directly help with, but it's just something that we like to inform people ahead of time of, hey, this is until this season of COVID or coronavirus ends, this is kind of how we have to proceed with, remembering your loved one.
Okay. Now, with you being in the funeral industry, there are 2 things I want to make sure that I cover with you.
Okay.
One is skeptics and the other is numbers, and we'll keep this going, but I want to start with skeptics. As someone who is literally seeing the byproduct, the unfortunate death of so many, what do you say to the people who are sitting on this skeptic thing, it's not real, or all of these people were passing away from other things, or the people who are literally still fighting the obvious. You understand what I'm saying? And their pushback to you is like, man, but the CDC says da-da-da-da, and that doesn't matter. What do you say to those people as a person who's literally standing in the middle of seeing the evidence every day?
I would tell those people that if they think it's just a skeptical thing, if they think it's just hearsay, come spend the day with me at the funeral home, and you'll kind of see the severity of it, of what this virus is doing to our people. If you think, oh well, they're just saying people are dying from COVID. Some things we can't really know, but at the end of the day, we do know something is going on. So it's better to be prepared than to be sorry that you weren't prepared. So I just, I encourage people that, even looking at the different industries. I was having this discussion with a buddy of mine. He owns a home healthcare company, young Black guy. And we were talking about it, as you look at the different entertainment industries, you look at the city of Chicago canceling the Taste of Chicago, canceling Lollapalooza, canceling the Blues Fest, the NBA canceling their season. These are billion-dollar companies that are canceling their seasons and losing out on billions of dollars due to this virus. That right there lets me know it's a little bit more than a notion, because people ain't gonna just leave billions of dollars on the table and just and just sit at home if it wasn't something going on. So, we gotta understand that there's something, going on. And again, if a person, I'm doubtful, come to 2533 West 71st Street, and I can kind of show you my problem.
Let's keep down that rabbit hole. We talked about the skeptics, and now let's talk about the numbers a little bit for the skeptics. Can you give me some kind of illustration of what it looked like before this and what that increase has looked like now? What has that looked like for you guys?
For us, it's been a great increase. From just the normal occurrences. Well, we always say anytime we have to retrieve someone's loved one, we treat it with sincerity and compassion. So anytime someone loses a loved one, we completely try to do our best to make sure that we're focused on providing the most caring service possible. But since this has happened, the numbers have truly increased dramatically in the families that we've had to service who have had loved ones who've transitioned from this, to the point where as we walk into our embalming room, they're just, loved ones just back there, more than what there were before. And then understanding that, again, with many of the COVID cases, they are transitioning at the hospital, which is a whole nother mental issue for families to deal with. Because as you know, as people have COVID in the hospitals, no one can be there with them. So it's kind of like they're transitioning along by themselves. Then we get the call to pick them up. So it's been a huge increase on our side. My great aunt, my father's aunt, we're actually laying her to rest on Thursday, and she passed from COVID.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Mrs. Fanny Gardner. So she passed. She was about 87, and she got it, and she passed. So even for us, it's hit home. So, the numbers again, and even with, because I've been asked this question a lot, just how we care for those loved ones who transition from it. One of the things we were taught in school is you treat everyone, no matter what they may transition from. You treat every person who comes to your funeral home as if they have a life-threatening disease. So it's called universal precautions. So whether they pass from a heart attack or whether they pass from a car accident, you still have to treat that person as if they had an incurable disease, or if they had COVID before COVID was even around. So the precautions we take haven't necessarily increased dramatically, because we've always had to, as embalmers, service the body with gloves, with masks, even face masks, and the garments that are necessary to make sure that, particles and things like that aren't released on to you, your personal
Yeah.
self. So
Now, talk to me a little bit about, we hit on it a little bit, but talk to me a little about the level of service that you're used to offering and that you can't offer anymore, and what though that increase has looked like for you. Because not only is the service being altered by the fact that you can't hug, touch, like we talked about earlier, but it also has to be affected by the numbers. There's only the same amount of time in the day, the same amount of days in a week. Talk to me a little bit about how the service has been affected and what efforts you guys have to put in to make sure that it doesn't falter on the end of the family.
well, we've certainly had to bring in additional employees with the number of cases going on. Of course, some churches, traditionally, we could have homegoing celebrations at churches. Some churches aren't allowing people to bring their loved ones in right now, which is completely understandable. But as far as with, other things that have kind of affected us, everything, again, from people not being able to come in, even from an insurance perspective, the clerk's office is closed down. So prior to that, where we could go get a death certificate, because of course you need a death certificate for your insurance, and we get, as a funeral home, we're compensated from families through the insurance policies that the loved ones may have had. But with us not being able to, originally when this first started, with the circuit courts closing down, Markham Courthouse and the different courthouses where we received the death certificates from, we had issues with family members. They were kind of wondering, well, if we can't send a death certificate, copy of the death certificate to the insurance company won't release the funds, whether it be the insurance company or the bank. So they actually, a little while ago, the state set up a system called Vital Check, where we can do everything online. So now we can get the death certificates online and processed online, so we can then send them out to the different insurance companies. So financially, we can get that covered. But even on top of that, there's another component that has kind of changed things when it comes to cemeteries. That's a whole different. Each cemetery is kind of navigating this space differently. Some cemeteries that we've went to, they only allow 10 people at the gravesite. Then when they're lowering the body, those 10 people have to be back at their car seeing the body lowered, which is, and again, each cemetery is different. So some cemeteries, each one at this time kind of have different rules which they're abiding by, because they're out in the open, they're outside.
Now, are there no state regulations? Because you just kind of talked to me about the heavy, communication from the state with the funeral homes. Does there seem to not be that state regulation on the cemetery side? What's your kind of take on that?
I can't say that there isn't one, but that line of communication is kind of separate. But from the different funeral homes that that we've been going to, each one is kind of different. One may say, well, the 10 can stay here while the body's being lowered. Then another one may say, well, while the body's being lowered, the 10 have to sit in their car. So it's just, as long as they're not 50, 100 people like we used to do, we got the big caravan of cars going up to the cemetery, you won't see that for now until things are lifted.
Now, let me ask you a controversial question, and you have every right to bow out gracefully and be like, I'm not going to answer. But Mother's Day just passed, and locally in Chicago, there was definitely a big hullabaloo where there were a couple of cemeteries where people were going because they wanted to, of course, see their mothers on Mother's Day, right. And the cemeteries were closed. And I definitely understand where they were coming from. But I just want to let people know, as I'm asking you this question, the domino effect of that was that at some points there were 40 and 50 cars around the gates of the cemetery with people just kind of standing there. Yeah. And I just kind of want to get, if you're willing, if you're not, it's okay. You can bow out gracefully, but if you're willing to address this, I just kind of want to get your take on it.
Okay. I certainly say that, because I actually had a friend of mine, she went to visit her mom. I'm not going to say the name of the cemetery, but she went to visit her mother, and it was closed. So, I certainly, from one standpoint, I have compassion for the people who may have gone to see Mama and couldn't go and place flowers on the gravestone. Then there's another side to that as well. With the cemetery, they have a staff, and if you have a huge influx of people coming, which they do, they visit Mama, they visit Grandmama on Mother's Day. That could be putting their staff in harm's way as well, because you have to have cemeteries for the most part sit on acres, so you have to have quite a few people there to make sure everything is running correctly, to make sure there are no issues, and that's kind of putting them in harm's way as well. And that's had to have been a lot to manage, with people going to see Mama, trying to count each group of 10 per grave site. It's a lot to manage, I'm sure, for the staff.
Yeah, and then you gotta wait, and I can let these cars in, and that's a lot.
Then it's, again, cemeteries sit on acres. So you might have one family all the way over here, another family all the way over there, another family all the way over there. And you still got to have someone at the gate, watching people come in. Then people are in their cars, because most of the sites, especially when you have family members who have been buried deep into cemeteries, you can't walk there from the entrance. So now you got to count the people in the cars. Are y'all with them? It's
too much. And then you're not even thinking about the fact a lot of families have most of their family members buried at the same cemetery, even if it's not in the same area. So then we're going to see Auntie so-and-so over here, Grandma so-and-so over here, Grandpa so-and-so over here. It just does become a logistical situation that you can't really control. And I'm glad that you said that, because there were so many people, and I'm glad that you really pointed that perspective out, because like you said, I can definitely empathize with wanting to see Mama on Mother's Day. Right. But at the same time, I think that there are a lot of times where people have to kind of step out of self and understand the bigger picture of it, right. That logistically, and I'm really glad that you actually stepped out here and talked about this, but logistically, I need people to understand 1 + 1 has to equal 2. Right. And we want you to respect your mother, but at the same time, we want you to still be okay. Right. And we want to be okay, right. Right. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit, for real. I want to get real. Okay. About the people in our generation. And let's be very clear, we don't like to claim it, but we're millennials, okay? Right. We're millennials. It is what it is. I'm 86. What are you, like 88, 89, 90? What are you? 7. See, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have to like it, but we are, okay? Right. Now, let's just kind of call it what it is. And our African-American millennials, we are a bit of conspiracy theorists as a whole. We touched on this skeptic thing a little bit earlier, and really talking to these people and saying, well, if you think it's a game, come to the funeral home and everything like that. But I really want to talk to you, if we can, about why we're this way, if that makes sense. What is it about us? And I've never gone this far with somebody on this show before, but I'm curious, because we're having a really good conversation. Why is it that when there's obvious information that's there, 1 + 1 = 2, we still be like, but nah, is that really a 1, or is that a 1 plus point ... 01? And then under that, if you really add that, then it really ain't 2 when you add it together, because it's 2.0000022. What? Like, why? Talk to me about us and what we're supposed to do about those of us in this bunch that operate that way. I think that with the growth of social media, which me and you, we both, we're both from that area, because I think Facebook came out maybe 2000. When we went to college. We went to college. Yeah. Shout out to West Illinois University, So, see? So, when we went to college, we were pretty much at the pinnacle of the birth of social media. YouTube came not far after that. So we, contrary to those who came before us, we've been exposed to different
outlets of information. And I think as you have, and this is just one side of it that I feel, when you have, outlets like YouTube and Facebook, if you're on Facebook every day, someone's posting a different article, real or fake, about what's going on with the coronavirus. I've heard people, and I've had discussions, oh, well, once it get warm, the virus dies in heat. Then other people said the virus dies in cold weather. So it's so much information out there. And you mix that with us being millennials, and we're still, we're right on that brink of still being considered like kind of pretty young, but not so young. Now we still kind of feel like, our immune systems are A1 and it won't affect us. And right. And we're just immune to anything happening. There was a statement years ago, live fast and die young. Some people aren't necessarily concerned with dying young, but other people feel like we're just going to live forever.
So they YOLOing. They had a YOLO lifestyle.
YOLO. So it's kind of like, when you mix, again, social media, our own perspective of thinking we just going to be young forever, it's just a recipe for us not taking things seriously. If you look at some of the house parties that have kind of been going on, and we're used to being, and I get it. And
the street twerking. Don't forget the street twerking.
In the street twerking, and I get it. We're used to being free. We're used to it's May 12th. And it's a Tuesday. This past weekend, well, it was kind of raining, but we're used to in the month of May, we're getting ready to go on our summer trips. We're getting ready to go to Dominican Republic. We're going to Mexico. We getting ready to travel the world. It's the summertime. We done worked hard all year, and we just going, but we can't do that now.
I get it, but at the same time, I always think about the argument that I've had with people where it's like the Montgomery Bus Boycott lasted 380 some odd days. You think there was some conveniences that people didn't have to give up? Like, why do we feel like we are just we can't give up our summer trips? And you know what I'm saying? Like, why do we feel this way?
Spoiled. Spoiled. We're a spoiled generation. We're a generation of a lot of I won't say entitlement, but this is really, the millennials are really, for the most part, like a really entrepreneurial, self-driven generation. We found ways to make money on our own. A lot of the foundation that was kind of set for us with our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, even with the Montgomery boycott, just as millennials in our generation, even Generation Z, there's such a strong independence of, hey, I hear what you're saying, but I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna do me, so I think that can be good and bad. And in this scenario, some of us and some of the younger generation, they're holding on to that. They're saying, well, I hear what you're saying, CDC, but I'm gonna do my thing. We see what happens.
I agree with you. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole because I have another show called Damn Kim when I could really say how I feel about that. But I'm going to keep it a little reined in on this one. Right. But on that other one, I could address that, say how I really feel. Right. Now I want to, the last part of the show that I always do is I discuss how Blacks, individuals and as a community, how we can take these lemons and kind of make lemonade out of them. Now, I would be remiss not to mention the awkwardness of me kind of talking to you about this, because it's almost like that feeling of during war times, war sucks, but the weapons companies make money. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it sucks for me to have to kind of have this conversation with you, but at the same time, I've done it with every other industry and I haven't felt guilty, and now I kind of, you know what I mean? I have to kind of discuss it with you. But what does that look like as far as your industry, your business, and you guys taking what is a horrible situation and trying to make the best out of it?
I think it's causing us to, or it's pushing us to a point where, we're learning how to service families more so from intentional emotional standpoint, whether it's from, again, with the virtual services, because for us, we really see, my parents are pastors, so we see what we do as a funeral ministry, right? We see it as ministry. So it's kind of like, seeing any financial growth from it, that's never our motive from it. It's being able to be there for people during the worst time of their lives and just kind of put a smile on their face. And I think what we're gaining from this is an increased level of emotional sensitivity to be able to, again, be there for families, because what we're seeing now is, even in times past where we will maybe have a funeral service and we do the service, we meet with the family, we do the arrangements, we prepare their loved one, we have the service, go to the cemetery. And from then, of course, we still communicate with them, but it's like, hey, they thank us for such a good job we've done. But now it's a little bit, it's more extensive, because after we do the service with the 10 people who are there, we may live stream it if they want to, but now we're getting calls from relatives all across the country. Hey, you had my aunt there, how was the service? What happened during the service? Can I get an obituary? Can I get, some people, I would have came in town for the service, but I can't fly right now. They won't let me fly. And I live in Chicago, but the family picked their 10 people, but I really love my friend, and can I come and get an obituary? It's caused us to really do an extensive amount of what we call aftercare, which is after the funeral service and after we've done our part as professionals. There's a component that we're really growing in that has us communicating with people who aren't even the immediate family concerning that loved one who passed away.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful lemonade to make out of these lemons, because it actually starts kind of filling in that gap that you were talking about earlier, where you're not able to physically hug them. You're not able to invite them to the space and have, all these family members. It allows you to increase your compassion and point that same compassion in another direction. So you're still in ministry, because right. I understand a lot of people are not going to understand what we mean when we say, your family's funeral home is a ministry. There are some funeral homes that are businesses,
right?
But when a funeral home is a ministry, and I say this because my parents, shout out to Minister Peggy Carter and Deacon Carter, but the bereavement is their area of ministry. Right. So for them, I completely understand on a different level, because they are the people who go to the hospitals and comfort the family afterward and have those words. And that time is, so people don't really understand how detrimental that time is to those families, and how important, and sometimes it could be spiritually straining on them, you know what I mean? Because you're dealing with a lot of traumatic situations at once, but that's why it's ministry and not business. Right. And it's very important that people understand that. And I think that is beautiful, that the lemonade that you guys have made out of this was saying, hey, we can pivot this same ministry care that we were giving in a way that we can't anymore, and follow it up and give that compassion in another way. You know what I mean? That's beautiful. That's dope. Now, you personally, before we go, how are you as an individual? How are you trying to make lemonade out of this time frame? Or do you not really have an identity right now? Just keep it real. Are you just like, you kind of part of the whole machine right now?
Yeah, well, I've been making lemonade. So my wife's pregnant.
Congratulations. Yeah, y'all making lemonade.
Yeah, my wife is pregnant. So she's due in November. So outside of being at work and, some days kind of trying to do work from home, me and her, we're spending a lot more time together. She's working from home. So just making lemonade out of lemons that way, and just, focusing on mental health, just kind of personal development, actually being able to kind of take some time outside of, again, work, because we are, funerals are considered essential businesses. So as the world kind of stopped, we kept going more and more.
Increase.
Increase. So, I mean, personal growth and development is huge. Just kind of trying to stay positive. Hopefully I get a haircut soon, and life will get back to normal. I haven't had a haircut in 2 months. So
listen, you don't tell no woman. We understand you. Every episode of Black Quarantine Report, I had a hair wrap on.
Yeah.
single episode.
Real. It's real.
And I want to point out to people, anybody who is watching this, take a smile and take some warm fuzzies from the fact your wife is pregnant now. And I want people to understand lemonade looks like different things for everybody, because so many people think lemonade looks like you got to start a business, you got to do this, you got to do this. No, you just take the best of whatever situation you're in and make something beautiful with it. Like, give it silver lining. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that just made me feel all warm and fuzzy. That's so cute. I want to thank you. Now, before we go, I want you to give me everything you can on Gardner Funeral Home. Give me the address, run down if you got a website address, let's send an email. And then also for the people that are watching, if they unfortunately are in a situation where they do have home, people that need to be taken care of, let them know how they can find you guys and connect with you guys.
Okay. So again, I am the VP of Operations at Gardner Funeral Home. We're located at 2533 West 71st Street in Chicago, Illinois. Our number is 773-737-2734. We also have a website, which is gardnerfuneralhome.org. And we're even on Facebook as well. You can find us on Facebook, Gardner Funeral Home Official. Let me think what else. Certainly if we have someone and you may have a loved one who is, preparing to transition or who has transitioned, or even if you just kind of want to do any pre-planning, we offer pre-planning services as well, to where if you have a loved one who kind of already knows how they would like their themselves to be laid to rest, they can actually come in and pre-plan their own service. But we're here to serve you. It's been our mission to serve your family with care, integrity, and compassion. We've been doing it since 1995. Again, my parents founded the funeral home of godly principles, and I'm glad to be the second generation carrying that torch. So again, in your time of need, just know that Gardner Funeral Home is here to serve you with a great amount of compassion and professionalism.
I want to thank you for doing the interview. I want to thank you for reaching out to even initiate the interview. This was a conversation that needed to be had. Thank you for taking accountability for our people and understanding that there are some things that need to be said. But more than anything, I want to thank you and your family for being ministers in a time like this. And I don't even mean that with titles. You know how the Black church can get. I mean ministers of love, ministers of compassion, and following what God told you to do. So I commend you guys on that. And I commend you on being a second generation. Y'all better do that.
We gotta keep it going.
Legacy. I love it.
Wow.
All right, so I will make sure that I drop all of the information. Not only will it be on screen, but I'll put it in the comments and the description of the video. So thank you so much for doing this visit. Any last words? You got anything you want to say real quick? Because you can tell them, whatever.
I'll say this to everybody watching. Shout out to Kim for even doing this and providing a platform to share information. So I salute you. I shout you out. So if it's ever anything that, I can do, Gardner Funeral Home can ever do for you, just, you got my number, you got my email, we're one phone call away.
I appreciate you saying that. I really do. Thank you. And thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for doing all of this. So I'm excited, guys. Next week, we do have another episode coming up where next week we will be discussing mental health awareness during this time. So I am really, really excited about next week's episode. So look for that. BlackQuarantineReport.com is where you can go to find all of the past episodes, and you can find us on all of the socials at Black Rona Report. Thank y'all so much for watching the show. See y'all next time.